Hello and welcome to a special episode of Underground. Equal rights for Palestinians are a key to establishing a just and comprehensive peace in the Middle East. Of all the inequalities blocking a peaceful and just resolution, the situation of the Palestinian refugees stands out. Today we will shed light on the global campaign to return to Palestine, which is an umbrella organization for civil society associations that support the Palestinian cause both in the Arab countries and the world, and has representatives and partners in over 45 countries around the world to set up events and movements to advocate the Palestinian cause and especially the right to return. To do so, we're joined by Ms. Mariam Zarakit, Public Relations Coordinator of the Global Campaign to Return to Palestine. Welcome to Underground.
Thank you.
Our first question is about the right to return. What is it and why is May 15 chosen as the day to commemorate this?
As the global campaign to return to Palestine, in our core mission comes the idea of seeing the Nakba Day from a different perspective, and that is, we're done actually only lamenting and remembering the exodus, but rather it's time for us to start looking forward to the day of return. Looking with optimism and summoning all the efforts available for this sole purpose. So from this point we see that the day that this tragedy happened, and 66 years ago we lost Palestine, that's true, but it's time for us to start looking with foremost optimism that the day of return is coming, that Palestine will be retrieved. The issue of Palestine, the right of return, we all know that the Nakba actually and the occupation of Palestine did not happen all at once on May 1948, yes. But actually it has its roots going back to even before the Balfour Promise, to the days of Theodore Herzl, and the decades of plots and deceit, Israeli deceit that has managed successfully to convince and make it believable to Westerns and foreigners that the Palestinians sold the land. And that's actually what we always try to work on, is raise awareness about the wrongful understanding of this issue.
Mm-hmm. Now more than 4 million Palestinians are refugees. Mm-hmm. And so many people around the world, they don't understand the core of the problem and what really happened in Palestine. What do you have to say about that?
That's actually what I was pointing out. Besides if we decide to ignore the blame on the international organizations that have taken the cause of the refugees, if we want to talk about the United Nations, if we're going to ignore that, we see that it's the movement, it's the Zionist movement from its basis that has worked for decades to make it believable to all people that Palestinians sold their land, and there's no case of occupation, that actually it's a land for no it's a people with no land for land with no people, that Palestine was empty and it was waiting the chosen people to come and find a home in it. Mm-hmm. And that's actually the roots of the problem that led to this ignorance about the Palestinian refugees issue.
Sure. Ms. Mariam Zarakit, allow us now to go to a video and watch it. It's about, it's from your page or Facebook page of the Global Campaign to Return to Palestine.
Of course. Ms. Mariam Zarakit, in your opinion, what is the key to return to Palestine? The key to return to Palestine is actually all these efforts. You know, the idea of having an umbrella organization comes from that alone no one can actually do something, but the joint efforts and the expansion and unification of these efforts actually what pays towards the return.
As an activist, how do you feel about this day, and how do you see the activities to commemorate Al-Nakba Day outside Palestine?
As I have formerly pointed out that we would love to get outside the tragedy of the day. That's actually the main and most important idea. We don't want to lament and remember and keep looking back. It's time to look forward. It's time to always consider this day and never refer to it again as Al-Nakba, but the day of return. That's actually a most important thing, that we don't commemorate this day as a tragedy. As you see, we have all the movements contain actually protests that are holding the Palestinian flags and that are away from any scenes of tragedy or lamenting, but actually it's always optimistic that we're going to return. Today is the day of return.
This activism that you're doing is faced by the Zionist state doings of denying the right of Palestinians to return to Palestine, and it seems that the international organizations are keeping a blind eye on this. Why is this happening? Why is the international community keeping a blind eye on this right for Palestinians?
If we're talking about the United Nations role, I think that the United Nations carries out a hindered role when it comes to preserving the Palestinian rights. And of course, that can be referred to the role of the United States government veto on every resolution made by the United Nations to support the Palestinians or preserve their rights. It's part of the US government policy that adopted a full and indefinite support to Israel, as we all know. I could point out actually the case of the Palestinians in Jerusalem, whose citizenships whose nationalities get pulled from them, and instead they are given citizenship papers that need to be extended constantly. When we look at this, we see that these Palestinians have never left Palestine, and they continue to live with their families on their own properties, and yet they do not have the right to hold the nationality of their own country, or actually preserve a normal living as a citizenship. But rather they're treated like foreigners on their own land.
Okay, now allow us to watch another video from the Facebook page of the Global Campaign to Return to Palestine.
Sure.
Do you think that all Palestinians have the dream to return back to Palestine, or now the Palestinian cause is dismissed?
No, I don't see that. Actually, if you speak to Palestinians, wherever they are, you always find this clinging, to the land they have left 66 years ago. And it's always the role of the generation and the memory. That's why it's always shown in, like you see in the flashes of the campaign, there's a grandfather who has witnessed the Exodus, who has witnessed the Nakba, and he's always giving the key to his child. And this always reflects the memory, the role of the memory for that the new generation will not forget. And that's actually what the Israelis have always, yes, of course, have always relied on, that people will forget. The new generation will eventually forget. They'll forget that they have a land, that they have a country, and the issue will be over, once the new generation forgets. But actually you don't find that. You always see that the grandparents, the parents are always leaving this legacy with the children, speaking about the key, speaking about return.
And the youth are always motivated to go back and explore their own land.
Yes, it's their
land. And now the Israeli state has declared occupied Palestine as a state of all Jews. To what extent can this affect the Palestinian cause, and what would it lead to?
Actually, I think that they can declare whatever they want. They can say that it's a Jewish state, but as long as there are voices saying that it's not a Jewish state, it's a Palestinian state, it's our right. And it's a very legitimate right, actually, because it has been taken forcefully and illegitimately. So as long as there are voices saying that Palestine is not a Jewish state, it's a land for Palestinians, I think that they can, make any action, put any law, declare it any Jewish or whatever state. There are people who are always saying that this is a Palestinian state and fighting for this right eventually.
Ms. Maryam Zaraqat, allow us to take this short break before we continue our talk about this day.
Sure.
Dear viewers, we will stop for a short break and then we'll be back.
Evening. Women's rights redefined.
Britain and France especially were competing with each other.
And the film tells the story of the building of the separation wall or the apartheid wall, whatever you want to call it.
That the 1% are dominating. The societies that are built for the benefit of very few wealthy people.
What you read in here actually shapes what's happening today. So the politics, the double dealing, the backdoor dealings, the lies, the blatant lies.
And it does that firstly by, in the first half, telling the story of various families and how they were expelled from their homes through 1948 and then 67.
It's called decisive. It's not suggesting that every decision will be perfect or that you'll be able to do it immediately.
Welcome back. Today we're talking about the right of Palestinians to return to occupied Palestine. And with us is Ms. Maryam Zaraqat, Public Relations Coordinator of the Global Campaign to Return to Palestine. Welcome again.
Thank you again.
As a part of the Global Campaign to Return to Palestine, what activities do you do?
I can tell you about the Day of Return, which is today actually, and give you a brief about our movement around the world. First of all, in Palestine, of course, in the West Bank and in Gaza. In Gaza we have a cinema day and events all over the West Bank. In Egypt we have also a cinema day, some poetry and music. In Tunisia, we have a national meeting for different parties and NGOs in support for the Palestinian cause. In Nigeria, we have a seminar and also a protest. In Turkey, actually, we have movements that are taking place at the same time in 16 different locations around Turkey. And among those is a protest in front of the Israeli embassy. In Russia, also, we have a seminar and a protest in front of the Israeli embassy. And the program is very long for Lebanon. That starts today with a march of return to the nearest point to Palestine, and that is Nakura. In addition to movements in approximately all the Palestinian refugee camps in Lebanon.
Sure. Now we witnessed that the campaign is using social media as a tool to promote its cause. How has social media helped in this?
And actually, the diversity present in the social media plays a very big role in promoting and advocating this cause to huge masses around the world. Through posting, actually, it keeps also people in touch. People are on social media on a daily, if I don't want to say hourly basis, and it keeps them in touch with the cause constantly. For example, through photo streams live from Palestine that shows the apartheid, the detentions, the demolition of houses, the cruelty of Israeli forces when dealing with the Palestinians, and that actually basically makes Palestine present at all times in the consciousness of people.
Now let's go back to watch one of the videos prepared by the global campaign to return to Palestine.
Of course.
Ms. Mariam, these videos we've been watching throughout our show is out of the Facebook page of the Global Campaign to Return to Palestine.
That's true.
What other social media tools do you use?
We have a Twitter page, and soon we're going to be launching a website for the campaign and a smartphone application. Those platforms serve a lot in attracting more efforts. We always get contacted by volunteers and activists around the world who want to plan and implement a movement in their own country, or just get involved in an already organized event. And we always welcome volunteers, and we always welcome more cooperation from organization, as I said, to unify all these efforts and expand them.
What about the feedback from users?
That's what I pointed out. It's very positive, and it's mostly what's mainly
Other
important.
than volunteering, what do they say about what you do? Do they motivate you? Do they tend to oppose what you're posting or to agree with?
No, opposing, it's very rare, it's very rare that we get opposition. Actually, people are always very excited and very welcoming for our movements, and they also ask about what more upcoming events do we have, what do we plan to do in the future. It's very positive, actually.
As a global campaign, do you witness any shift in the public opinion of the Westerns regarding the Palestinian cause?
Actually, yes. I see that the trend today is moving towards more support in the West for the Palestinian cause and more rage against Israel. And we can see that actually, and Israel senses that. I can always refer to the incident in 2013 when the physics British scientist Hawking decided to join the academic boycott and pull his participation from the Jerusalem-based Israeli presidential conference hosted by Shimon Peres. The BDS, the boycott movement, actually is a sister organization in Lebanon, and of course we all know that the boycott in Lebanon is not only directly against Israeli product, but also against the products that support Israel. So basically, yes, it's a sister organization in Lebanon to the global campaign.
Sure. Now another video from the global campaign to return to Palestine. We would like to know more about these videos. How do you prepare it? Where do you get the idea from? Are there professionals working with you?
Yes, of course. Actually, we have a specialized team for media. that work on the storyboard for these flashes and that gather up a crew for shooting and picking out locations. They're a professional team, of course, and we're always flashes and posters that are spread on the streets always have a bigger effect, actually, because as I said, it always attracts the viewer. And keeps the you pass on the street and there's always posters. It keeps the idea going, and it keeps the idea present, actually.
Sure. Are these videos or clips or flashes sponsored? Do you have somebody who supports you? Are you funded by somebody, or it's volunteer work?
It's volunteer work. Actually, of course, we do have some, funders.
Supporters?
Yes, supporters. Of course, there's always supporters for this work, and it needs support. But basically, it's volunteer work. It's volunteer.
Okay. Are you personally optimistic that the day will come when people will return to Palestine?
Definitely, I'm optimistic because it's a right that has been forcefully taken, and as long as there's someone demanding this right, it does not get lost. The efforts and the people who are holding tight to this right goes beyond the global campaign to all its sister organizations that are spread in over 45 countries around the world. And this cooperation and this umbrella that's holding us all together is always what pushes us forward. To giving more and to supporting the cause more and keep moving in what we're doing for Palestine.
Are you afraid that the problems taking place in the Middle East region will somehow affect the Palestinian cause negatively or dismiss the Palestinian?
That's what we try to evade. Because what's happening in the Middle East right now in all the Arab countries, one of its main purposes is divert the people from this main destination, Palestine. And the only thing that actually unify people is the cause of Palestine. And we are trying to evade that. We're trying to work always to keep people attracted and to keep their attention pouring onto this cause, of course.
As an activist, what's in this specific cause of Palestinians to return to Palestine, what's your final words to the world and to Palestinians?
I would love to point out that no one should stay aside or stay inactive because they believe they don't have much to give, or that the cause is very much bigger than them and they wouldn't make a change. Alone, nobody can make a change. But each one of us should work from his own position, from his own profession, with whatever potential is available. So all these efforts jointly could actually then make an effect. Alone, nobody can make a difference, but jointly, we should all work from our own positions and use whatever we have to put it in this course.
Ms. Mariam Zarakit, thank you so much for joining us on Underground today. You are Public Relations Coordinator of the Global Campaign to Return to Palestine.
We are honored being here today, especially for this day and for this topic, for this cause.
Sure.
Thank you.
Now allow us to stop for our final video from the Global Campaign to Return to Palestine. That was all on Underground for today. Thank you for watching. Bye-bye.